Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about how to learn. So I'm not a specialist in how to learn, but I did learn some really amazing techniques when I was in university, and I'm just going to share that with you. So these techniques allowed me to acquire information very quickly and to be able to retain that information. So and also be able to use it. So this is really probably one of the greatest blessings I ever had in my education, and I just want to share it with you because a lot of people ask me about this, so I thought I'll just put a little video together. So basically what it is that the first problem to resolve is that when you're in university, you're going somewhere where you're learning from a teacher, the person's just talking at you and they're throwing information at you, and all that information is completely new. So you don't really have any perspective or any understanding. You never heard these things before. So a lot of that stuff just kind of bounces off you because you don't have anything to hang it on to. They're sort of answering a question that you didn't even have, you know? They're just giving you answers, but you don't know what the question was. So it's really hard in that situation to be able to put things together. So there's some very simple techniques that I learned that work incredibly well. So I'm just going to get straight into it. The first thing is to know what it is that the person's going to be talking about. So if you know what they're going to be talking about, in particular, when I went to university, we had a syllabus that showed us basically the order of information that was going to be covered. So I knew essentially what was going to be talked about every day. So my technique was when a lecture would start, I go into the lecture with my book, I open up the book, and then I skim the chapter about what the person's going to be talking about. So whatever the information is going to be presented, whatever information is going to be presented, I open up the chapter and I skim that chapter. And the skimming technique, now there's lots of different skimming techniques, you just have to find one that works for you. But the skimming technique that I used, basically what you have to do is kind of relax your eyes in a sense. You're not trying to read everything, but you're letting your eyes go over every word. And at first it helps to kind of use your finger and let your finger quickly go over the words. Again, you're not trying to understand it. You're just letting your eyes go over all the words. When you can move your finger away, what ends up happening is you can actually see kind of several lines at a time. So it's not important to understand it. It's just important for your eyes to see those words. And that's actually kind of one of the hardest things about this whole technique is it's like you want to try to understand what it's saying, but you don't have to. It's definitely not saying you're ignoring it. You are trying to see things, but you're not trying to put anything together. So you're just literally trying to see all the words, just showing your eyes all of the words on all of these pages. Whenever you get to a bold word, just kind of make a little mental note of what that bold word is. And I also try to pay a little bit more attention to the beginning and ends of paragraphs. So the middles of paragraphs you can kind of scoot through. And also when you get to a diagram, when you have a diagram, you really want to stop at the diagram, look at the diagram and look at the key and the what it is that they're trying to explain. So actually just read the whole key and read the description about the diagram. Okay, so you want to have a pretty good perspective on that. But basically, sort of say a 30-page chapter, you should be able to get through in a couple of minutes. So the idea is you expose your mind to a lot of the words that are going to be used in the lecture. So when the person is talking and they're talking about covalent bonds, and you go, oh, covalent bonds, right, yes, okay, I just saw that. And then there's part of your short-term memory where all this stuff is, and it kind of makes you a little bit interested because they've mentioned something that you just heard. So you're like, aha, oh, this is going to be information about something that I just saw. And then when they're describing it and explaining it, you're like, oh yes, okay, I saw that word too, and I saw this, and oh, I see, that's how that's tying together. So really what you've done is you've created a question by doing the skimming, and the lecturer is giving you the answers. So it generates some level of interest, but also I say it makes your brain a little bit sticky. So it makes your mind a little bit more interested in that information. And and then when they draw the diagram, you're like, oh yes, oh, this is that diagram. And then, you know what they're going to be putting there. It's going to be whatever, sort of mass and velocity or something. Whatever subject you're studying, it's going to start fitting together. So Anyway, this is the first major key in trying to acquire information better, is make your brain sticky. The second thing varies a little bit between different people. Now, I'm an auditory learner, so I learn best by listening. I don't have to watch the person. I don't, there's basically visual, tactile, and auditory are kind of the three main ways of learning. And so for me, again, I just have to listen carefully. And then what I'll do is I will take notes during the lecture, but I take very, very sparse notes, and that's quite intentional. What I'm trying to do in my notes is I'm trying to decide, as I'm listening, what are the most important things. And I'm just kind of creating little kind of headings. So my notes will be quite open. There'll be little headings, little bits of information. I'll write down what it sounds like is important, and also the things that I know I need to know more about. So I'm like, okay, I don't understand what they're talking about, or I definitely know I need to look more into this. So I'll write some of those things down as well. So that's the second, well, really the third step. The first step is the skimming. Second step is listening to the lecture. Third step is taking the notes, but it's sparsely. And then basically that's how you go through your whole lecture. Now, after the lecture, what you do is you you read through your notes. So the notes are quite sparse, but you really need to take a little bit of time. And I would say that this takes maybe about 5 minutes. So skimming will take a couple minutes. This will take about 5 minutes. And you need to look through your notes and think about what was being said at that point in the lecture. So what this does is it helps to marry the lecture material, the information in the lecture, with your notes, okay? And then also you can kind of put little stars and dashes if there's something else you want to look up more about. So this is a really, really important step, and it's probably the easiest step to ignore, but it's super, super important because, if you have a good lecture and that information is something that's very, very important, then you want to try to create as much of a link as you can to the information, to the materials you have with you, and your notes are really your primary version of that. So looking at the notes and thinking about what was being discussed in the lecture just allows you to remember more of what was said in the lecture, and also to kind of learn your notes and what it is that you've created so that you can fill that in later. So the next component has to happen in the same day. It absolutely has to happen in the same day, and that's that you read the entire chapter, or you read whatever information that you have access to that's going to help you fill in your notes. So when you read your book, you're going to be basically getting a more comprehensive or sort of laid out, organized perspective of what that information is. And this should be really, really enjoyable because you've had so many exposures to the information already. You had your skimming, you had your lecture, you had your notes, you had your review of your notes. And now as you're reading it, it's actually going to make it quite enjoyable because you're going to say, okay, this is fun. It's putting everything together. I'm understanding it. And then as you're reading it, have your notes with you, and then write in your notes and fill in details that you feel are important. And then that's basically it. That's all you need to do. So when it comes time, there's actually one more thing, is that depending on the course and how it's constructed, if there's any work that you need to do or any way you need to express your understanding of that work, you should do that the same day as well. So after you've read it, if there's questions at the end, answer those questions. If there's work to do that work. So this allows you to basically practice what you've just learned and to be able to express and to be able to use it. So it's really, really important. So all of this has to happen in the same day. So you're skimming, you have a lecture, you're taking your notes, you're reviewing your notes, you're reading the material, and you're doing your questions, all in the same day. Now, what's going to happen? Well, when it comes time to study for the exam or to be able to use that information in some way, when you go to review it, all you have to do is you open your book, you open your notes, and you just flick through the pages. And what will happen is you'll say, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this. And it will be much easier because you've actually exercised that information so well and really integrated it. So like when I went to school, I didn't really study for exams. A lot of people were trying to get all the information into their head the night before the exam and basically was trying to use her short-term memory to get through the exam, and then afterwards it would all be gone. However, when you use this technique, you actually acquire the information and you can use it because you've had so much exposure to it and you put the work in. And these are all things you're going to do anyway, aside from maybe a few minutes here and there. I would say it's only about 7 minutes more work than what anyone else would normally be doing. So most people are going to be taking lots and lots of notes. I take quite simple notes. Now again, if you're a tactile person and you really need to write things down or you need to draw things out, make your notes about that as well. So everyone has their style of learning, and you can adapt this however you want as well. It's not necessarily my way of learning, it's just the way that I've found to do it. So what's great about this, again, is that it doesn't really take a whole lot more time. You have your 2 minutes of your skimming, and you have your 5 minutes, say, of a review of your notes right after the lecture, and then you're going to read the book anyway. And I think that my note-taking probably saves me some time as well. I have a lot less effort in my note-taking than most people do, try to write everything down. So it's definitely not any more work, but it is a super, super effective way. So anyway, I hope that that's of use to some of you. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. And thanks for watching.